right. All righty. It's not ESPN. It's 30 for 30, but it is my 98 for 98. 98 seasons in the history of the New York Football Giants. And going to try to get it done in 98 days. That's probably not going to happen in 98 days, but I am going to get it done before the beginning of the regular season, which starts September 10th against the Dallas Cowboys. And we're halfway into the 80s. Yes. Season number 61 in the history of the New York Giants. 1985 was a very, very good season for the Giants. The third season for the Bill Parcells coached New York Giants. Each year, they 4 years in a row, they would get better and better. They went from 3-12 to 9-7. This year they'd be 10-6, and then of course 1986 they were 14-2 Super Bowl, right? But once again they took another step forward. They were 9-7, but in 1985 they were 10-6. The 6 games they lost were just tough ones. They were all, if I remember, all one-score games. Quite a few of them, they had the leads, and they lost the lead in the fourth quarter. I remember the Cleveland Brown game, watching that one on TV. That one ripped my heart out. Phil Simms had 513 yards passing against the Cincinnati Bengals. And Bengals didn't even have 200 yards of offense, but somehow the Bengals, thanks to the Giants' turnovers, but the Bengals didn't even have 200 yards of offense, and somehow they managed to score 35 points and beat the Giants 35-31. I mean, the Giants just totally outplayed them, except for the turnovers. But yes, but I mean, so when they did lose, it was close games that they could have won. So they were really showing promise. The problem, 1985, there's a team from the Midwest called the Chicago Bears, and their defense was just, and the Giants would clash with them in the divisional round of the playoffs, and it wasn't pretty. The Giants defense held up in the playoff game, which we'll go over. It was 7-0 at halftime. Sean Landeta whiffed on a punt. I forget, was it Sean Gale, or I know his last name was Gale. He picked Sean Landeta whiffed the punt like at his own 1-yard line or 2-yard line or so, went off the side of his foot. Sean Gale, Gale, his last name was, picked it up, ran it in the end zone from like 3 yards out, gave the Bears a 7-0 halftime lead. The Bears scored 2 touchdowns in the second half. The Bears had over 300 yards, but the Giants' offense was just non-existent. But anyway, that's a little later in the program. Jump too far ahead. But I mean, you can certainly say the Giants, obviously, once again, getting better. It's the first time. So this is 1985. It's the first time since 1972 they averaged over 20 points a game. So they went from 73 to 84 without even averaging 20 points a game. I don't even know if they had a 19-point year. I mean, I think the highest was like 18 once or twice. They had like 2 12s. 2 years they averaged 12 points a game. Well, they might have had a 13. I know they had a 14, a 15, a 16. And I mean, ungodly, pathetic offense. Finally, it was a combination of, once again, Phil Simms was healthy all year, right? He didn't quite get 4,000 yards passing, but a big part of that was because Joe Morris only had 21 rushing touchdowns. Joe Morris burst onto the scene, had a great year, had over 1,300 yards rushing, but 21 rushing touchdowns. Fantastic season. So I mean, the Giants, it was a very, very good season, but they were just not quite the cream of the crop yet. They knew. I think Lawrence Taylor said it. He said that he thought we were an intense team. We thought we were good, tense, and all that and everything. But he said when we played Chicago, they were more intense than we were. And I think it was Lawrence Taylor also said, like the home field really, I mean, really, it means a lot, So it was kind of thinking like, it's like, if we want to go to the Super Bowl, the road through the Super Bowl has to come through New York, and it did in 1986. So they learned, they weren't the better team. The Bears were certainly the better team in 1985, and they learned, they learned a lesson, and they learned it the hard way, but they took notes and they applied it in 1986, and they went all the way. So, but the 1985, let's go over their preseason schedule, shall we? They did good in the preseason, very, very good. Let's see, they won them all. Matter of fact, the first preseason game was August 3rd. They played. That's right. This was the Hall of Fame game. I forgot about this. They played the Houston Oilers. They won 21-20. It was in Canton, Ohio, at the Fawcett Stadium. Hall of Fame game. Then the Giants. After that, when they played away in Denver, they played Mile High Stadium. They beat the Broncos 30-20. Then this is where Alijah Sheik, I believe, he aggravated like a hamstring injury. I don't know. I mean, just sometimes you shake your head. Somewhere in training camp, he stepped in a hole somewhere on the field. I don't know if it was a divot. I don't know if it was some big hole that was like for drainage purposes, or is there a hole for something else? I don't know. But apparently what I saw, he stepped in a hole and basically like pulled a hamstring. And that would kind of hinder him for pretty much the whole season. But he re-aggravated that. So somewhere along the line before this, the third preseason game was against the Packers at home. They won 10-2 at obviously Giant Stadium. But so somewhere before that, before the Packer game, that's when he stepped in the hole. It could have been a week, could have been a couple of weeks before. I'm not exactly sure, but it hurt. He pulled a hamstring, I believe it was. And then I think it said in the Packer game, he re-aggravated it once again. So the Giants wound up with 3 kickers during the season. All right. I think Alijah Sheik played in just 2 of them. And it was 2 out of 5. So he was not himself. Apparently the injury, the hamstring injury was kind of maybe like a recurring thing, and it really hurt his career big time. I mean, in 1983, he had a great season, but he just started going downhill from there. But anyway, so that was week 3. Week 4, the Giants were home against the Jets, and they won 31-34 in overtime. And then in their final preseason game against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh at Three Rivers Stadium, the Giants would win 24-14. So the Giants were 5-0 in preseason. Absolutely fantastic. All right, now let's go to their draft. Now the draft wound up being was a pretty good one. Okay, I do question once again the first round pick, only because trying to think, which is not a good thing for me. 1982, right? 1982. They took Butch Wolfolk, right, in the first round, a running back. Second round, they took Joe Morris, running back. And with their third round pick, they traded away to Houston to get the year before to get Rob Carpenter. So in 1982, they had wound up with 3 running backs in their first 3 picks. I said one of them wasn't a pick, but it was they traded away their pick because they traded for Rob Carpenter the year before. So between 81 and 82, they with their picks in a trade, they wound up with 3 running backs: Wolfolk, Joe Morris, and Rob Carpenter. So what do they do in their first pick in 1985? 3 years later, first round, what do they do? Take a running back. So now George Adams, he was the Giants had the 19th overall pick. because they were 9-7 the year before. So they're, obviously picking in the later half. But I mean, George Adams out of Kentucky, he was a decent, a decent back. Obviously, you got to be pretty decent to get taken in the first round. But I mean, I just kind of question it because, as I said, they had Joe Morris, they had Rob Carpenter. They were taken. What wound up happening with George Adams, all right, is his rookie season wasn't bad. He gained a bunch of yards. A lot of it was through pass receptions, but basically because Joe Morris had over 1,300 yards rushing and he had 21 touchdowns. George Adams was basically like a backup. So you take a running back in your first round and he winds up being a backup. I'm sure the Giants had many other, needs or holes that they could have filled, but they said they took a running back. Well, it just goes to show you how things change. If the Giants took 3 running backs, in rounds 1, 2, and 3 in this year's draft, people would start getting fired, right? So, but I read this article here. It says about the top 10, I guess it is, draft busts of all time for the New York Giants since 1960. Number one pick draft bust all the time. And they got number 9 here out of the top 10 is George Adams. Now, it's just not so much he was a bust, it's just he got injured. In this article, it says, it's from Ed Valentine. It says, I really feel bad about putting running back George Adams on our list of worst New York Giants number 1 draft picks since 1960. It should not have been this way, yet here it is. Adams was a highly touted 6'1", 225-pound running back, a nice size, 6'1", 225 back in 1985. Solid. Said he was out of Kentucky. He could run, he could catch, and he can block. When the Giants selected him in the 19th overall selection in the 1985 draft, he even had a good rookie season, gaining 887 total yards from scrimmage, 489 yards rushing, 389 receiving from 31 receptions. So, all in all, he had almost 900 yards total offense, and he was a backup. Okay, not bad. So then it says here, so what happened? Well, what happened was Adams suffered a severe hip injury during training camp in August of 1986. Now, I think he was on the roster, and also I do believe he got a Super Bowl ring from the 1986 season. The injury wrecked his career as he never gained more than 169 yards rushing in a season for the rest of his career. And he was out of the NFL after the New England Patriots released him 2 games into the 1991 season. So unfortunately, I think it was 90 and 91, he was with the Patriots. So unfortunately, he missed out. If he could have stayed one more season with the Giants, he would have got himself a second Super Bowl ring, but it was just not meant to be. Actually, I think that the 1990 New England Patriots were absolutely horrible. Oh, they were terrible. I think they might have won 1 game. Says the injury led to Adams filing an unsuccessful lawsuit against the Giants and to having multiple hip replacement surgeries. So he filed an unsuccessful lawsuit against the Giants. I don't know what it was. Because he got injured. I don't know. He blamed the Giants for the injury, or maybe the Giants' lack of maybe being able to, help him recover from the injury. I don't know what it was, but so that I didn't know. The injury led him. He filed an unsuccessful lawsuit against the Giants, and he had to have multiple hip replacement surgeries. Absolute shame. It doesn't say here how he suffered it, but it was a severe hip injury that really, really, really obviously hindered him because, let's say, in 1986 he didn't play at all because of his hip injury. So 1987 he played. He averaged 2.8 yards a carry. 1988 he played for the Giants. He's still around. He averaged 2.6 yards a carry. 1989, he was still with the Giants. He got 9 carries for 29 yards. He averaged 3.2 yards a carry. He got a little bit of a, I don't know. In 1990 with the New England Patriots, I mean, who I think were the worst team in football. I think they won 1 game. He averaged 4 yards a carry. He ran the ball 28 times for 111 yards. He had 4 yards a carry. But then 2 games into the 1991 season, he started 1 game. He had 2 attempts for 3 yards. He averaged 1.5 yards a carry, and they just released him. Unfortunately, it just, His rookie season, he averaged 3.9 yards a carry. And as I said, he had the 31 receptions. In 1987 with the Giants, he had 35 receptions. 1988, he had 27 receptions. So, he was a good, what it said is he was a good blocker. And he certainly was a good receiver. And just, I'm sure with that hip injury, that just really limited him big time as far as in the running game. It's an absolute shame because he was a decent runner, especially in college. But unfortunately, all it's not always roses and sunshine. Just because you make it in the NFL, your number 1 pick doesn't mean things are going to pan out. But at least he did get himself a Super Bowl ring. But unfortunately, due to that hip injury, as I said, multiple hip replacements. What an absolute shame. But the Giants would draft another running back later on who would be around for quite a few seasons and who wound up being a very good player for the Giants. So let's continue. Let's continue with the draft pick, shall we? All right. So that's round 1. Round 2, the Giants took a very good pick, Mr. Stacy Robinson. Right. Let's see. How long was he with the Giants? He was with the Giants from 85 to 90, I believe. Right. He was with. Right. Was it all the seasons? Yeah. Yep. Good for him. Good. Way to go. Way to go, Stacy. The man got himself 2 Super Bowl rings. Way to go, brother. All right, pal. Now, 1985, apparently looked like he really didn't play much. He played in 4 games. Maybe it was all special teams. He didn't start any. However, 1986, he played in 12 games, started 10. But he was never much of a receiving threat. He had 29 receptions in 1986. 87, he had 6 catches. 88, he had 7 catches. 89, he had 4 catches. I guess he's lucky he was still on the team. 1990, he played in 5 games. He had 2 receptions. So he was probably maybe a special team or something like that. So he's lucky he was still on the team. I mean, really. But his high. I mean, it is a 2nd round pick, and his high was 29 receptions. Yeah, but all right. But he got himself 2 Super Bowl rings, so that's good. Good for him. All right. So that is all right. So now we got. That is round 2. I just want to make sure I don't miss any trades here or anything like that. Oh, the Giants. Okay. The Giants traded Butch Wolfolk to the Houston Oilers. Okay. They went up with Tyrone Davis. And Tyrone Davis, once again, a rather disappointing trade because Tyrone Davis was a defensive back. He played 1 season, and that was it. He played in 7 games. That's it. So pretty much, I guess, a special teamer. So they traded their number 1 overall pick from 1982 away for a guy who played 1 season with the Giants, 7 games, never started. Bad, very bad. All right, so that was, and then in their own 3rd round pick, they took Brian Johnson, who played 2 seasons, got 9 games, probably didn't start any. He was a center, so we had Bart Oates, so I'm sure he didn't start any. So, once again, however, their 4th round pick, you might have heard of this guy. I just want to make sure I'm not missing no trades. Did they trade guys away? Not like that. Okay. So, pick number 100 in the 4th round, they took some guy by the name of Mark Bavaro. Ooh, there you go. Right, huh? All right, now, round 5. Round 5, the Giants took Tracy Henderson. Never made it. He was a wide receiver. He never made it. All right. Never made it in the NFL, period. All right. Let's see. Make sure I don't make no trades or anything like that. All right. So in round 6, the New York Giants took Jack Oliver. There you go. He played one season. He got in 3 games. Basically, I guess he was pretty much a special teamer, I guess. So, let's see here. Oh, let's see. They must have made a trade or something. Yep, they made a trade. The Giants, unfortunately, sadly, very sadly, traded Terry Jackson to the Seahawks. Don't know why, but they traded Terry Jackson to the Seahawks, and they wound up with Mark Pembroke, who didn't play at all in the NFL. So they traded away Terry Jackson, the defensive back, for somebody who never played in the NFL. Go figure. All right, so that's right now. We're going to round 7. Then the New York Giants, they traded Kenny. The Giants would get Kenny Hill from the Raiders. So the Giants traded away their 7th round pick, and they wound up with Kenny Hill. Okay. Now their 8th round pick, somebody you know, number 22. I'll throw a little hint out there before I read his name off. Can you guess who it is? So an 8th round pick, number 213, the New York Football Giants took Lee Rouson, right? He was with the Giants with the 90. Was I say 91 here? Yep, 85 to 91. Good way to go, Lee. All right, brother. Yeah, get them 2 Super Bowl rings, right? Yeah. Well, okay. Well, actually, 1991 he was with the Browns, but he from 85 to 90 he was with the Giants. So he got himself 2 Super Bowl rings. Way to go. All right. Gotta love it. Okay, so that is round 8. All right, now round 9. Let's see. The New York Giants took Frank Wright. And Frank Wright was wrong. He was a defensive tackle, never made it in the NFL. But then again, we're talking 9th round pick, so is what it is. So round 10, the New York Giants, they took Greg Dubrock. Once again, sound like a broken record, but never made it in the NFL. Round 11, the New York Giants, they took Al Young. Al Young, shocking, I know, never made it in the NFL. He was a defensive back from Virginia Tech. This last guy, though, did make it in the NFL. The 12th rounder. Made it in the NFL. Didn't play his whole career with the Giants, but Herb Welsh, right? Pick number 326 in round 12. He played from 85 to 91. Way to go. Way to go. Way to go. He played 3 seasons with the Giants, but he got himself a Super Bowl ring. Very, very good. Then he played from 85 to 87 with the Giants. 1989, so he missed the season. 1989, he was with the Redskins. 90 and 91 has finished up his career with the Detroit Lions. So he wound up playing 6 seasons in the NFL. But, you know, he let's see, what did he do? Looked like pretty much a core special teamer. He started in 4 games for the Giants over 3 years. So nothing crazy. But once again, you know, he's somebody that had at least had a few years of a career to him. And, you know, he wound up sticking at least with the Giants for a couple years anyway. It's just the only thing I just kind of quite, I mean, they traded away Butch Wolfolk, right, who they drafted, you know, who was not super spectacular, but he was better, I think, than George Adams, especially after Adams got hurt. But of course, nobody knows that George Adams is going to get hurt. So it is what it is. But it's a Giants draft class. So they drafted a couple good core pieces. Now the thing was, it just kind of really just makes me, I don't know, just kind of go, I don't know, make me shake my head. But they wound up winning the Super Bowl, and of course this is Bill Parcells and all that. So who am I going to argue? But the thing is that they lost 21-0. Emphasis on nothing, right? To the Chicago Bears in the divisional round of the 85 playoffs. They had 4 second-round picks in the 1986 draft. So they had a first-round pick, 4 second-round picks and the third-round pick. So in the first 3 rounds, they had 6 picks. So when you get shut out 21-0, emphasis one more time on nothing, right? Don't you think, if you're going up against the top of the top and the elite of the elite, if you got to put the big boy pants on and you want to go to the Super Bowl and you're getting shut out, don't you think you might want a little more on the offensive side? Maybe, some dynamic wide receiver, maybe beef up the offense. Somebody, don't you think you'd want to add a little something to the offense when you just got shut out? Nope. So in 1986, Bill Parcells the first. He had 4 second-round picks. Everyone was a defensive player. His first 6 picks were from the first round to the third round. All 6 picks, all defensive players. I mean, of course, made the Giants' defense one of the best of, the 1986 was one of their best defenses of all time. So I guess in a way it's kind of hard to argue, but I don't know. But it is what it is. But so let's go over the Giants game, shall we? Let's see. Let's see here. Statistics. Let's go over the statistics here, right? Phil Simms started every game, played every game with it. He was 10-6. He completed 55.6% of his passes. He had over 3,800 yards, 22 touchdowns, 20 interceptions. But, the 3,800 yards was very, very good. However, it was not all that totally necessary because we had a good running game. Joe Morris had 1,336 yards rushing. George Adams had 498 yards. Rob Carpenter, who was coming to the end of his career, he had 201 yards. Tony Galbraith, Mr. Dependable on third down and all that with his receptions. He was fantastic. He had, He had 187 yards rushing. Maurice Carthon had 70. So, the Giants had 2,451 yards rushing in 16 games. They averaged 153 yards a game rushing the ball. Fantastic. And the defense was stout. The defense only gave up 92.6 yards a game rushing. Defense gave up 9 rushing touchdowns all season, 3.5 yards a carry. The Giants had 24 rushing touchdowns. They averaged 4.2 yards a carry. The running game was very, very good. Very, very good. 85, 86, the running game was very, very good. Sean Landeta had a fantastic season. He had 42.9 yards a kick. The Giants defense, now what they got here on Pro Football Reference, they said the Giants had 68 sacks. Unfortunately, they gave up 52. Well, that's also because Phil Simms threw the ball a lot. But they had 68 sacks. Now, check this out. You think about the Philadelphia Eagles from last year, had all those double-digit sack guys. Well, the Giants they weren't too bad this year. Leonard Marshall had 15.5 sacks. Lawrence Taylor had 13, and George Martin had 10. Who else? Jerome Sally had 7.5. Andy Hedden, even he had 5.5 sacks. Jim Burt from the nose tackle had 4. Casey Merrill, good old Casey, number 71. He had 3 sacks. A lot of guys had a lot of sacks, but 68 sacks. They were a sacking machine. But the one thing that it was in that divisional playoff game, they lost. I don't think they sacked Jim McMahon one time. So they couldn't get to him. But the kicking game, this is what kind of got the Giants. Ali Haji Sheik played in 2 games. He was 2 out of 5. He had 40% on his field goals. What we had here? Jess Atkinson, he played in 6 games for the Giants. He kicked 10 out of 15 field goals, 66.7%. And Eric Schubert, he played in half the games. He played in 8 of them. He was 10 out of 13. Not too bad, 76.9%. So the Giants had 3 field goal kickers. But this is going to be the period of time with Raul Allegre and Schubert, Atkinson, Ali Haji Sheik. There was a couple other guys that had in there, especially in the 1986 season. Bob Thomas, I think it was, played 1 game for the Giants, the first game of the season against the Cowboys. He missed a real short field goal, and the Giants wound up losing by 3 points, 31-28. They lost by, and he missed a really short field goal. And so he only played one game for the Giants. So, I mean, he was gone. The Giants had another guy. I mean, it was just it was really a mess. Their kicking situation over from like 84, 85, 86. I mean, it was just an absolute mess. Who was their other kicker here? Oh, kicker. Raul Allegre, Joe Cooper, and Bob Thomas. Bob Thomas was he missed one field goal. He played one game against the Dallas Cowboys, first game of the season. He was 34 years old. He came over from the Bears. So the Giants had three different kickers in 85, three different kickers in 86. I mean, this is fun. 87. I know. Let's see here. 1987. Let's see who they have here. Oh, because of this, they had George Beniola, because he was a scab kicker, and they had Raul Allegre. So I mean, they had a ton of different kickers in the mid '80s here. They had a hard time settling on getting a good kicker. Then they had Raul in '88. They had Paul McFadden and Raul Allegre in '88, '89. Let's see here. Who do the Giants have here? '89. I mean, it's just amazing. They once again had Bjorn Nitmo. I remember him, and Raul Allegre was in '89. How about 90? I mean, it's amazing. They couldn't go a whole season without the same kicker, the whole season kicking. Well, in 1990, of course, we had Matt Barr and Raul Allegre. After Raul got hurt, Matt Barr finished the season for the Giants. So, I mean, it's just amazing. The Giants couldn't have the same kicker all season long. It was amazing. All right. So the Giants, I mean, they started the season off. They won the first game. They wound up beating the Eagles. They shut them out 21-0. Right. So the Giants are on a roll. Giants are 1-0. Then they went to they played in Green Bay. It was a tough loss. They lost 23-20 to the Packers. The Giants had the lead 20-17, and Eddie Lee Ivory had a 1-yard rush for the Packers late in the fourth quarter. And the Packers wound up winning 23-20. So the Giants had the lead in the fourth quarter. They couldn't hold on to it. So now they're 1-1. All right. So week 3, the Giants would play the Cardinals at home. They won 27-17. Then the following week, the Giants would play in Philadelphia. So they got the Eagles done at first 4 games. They played the Eagles home and away. So in week 4, they played in Philadelphia. They won in overtime 16-10. Following week, on a missed extra point, the Giants lost 30-29 to the Dallas Cowboys. Now, that certainly doesn't mean if they made the extra point, they would have won in overtime. But, let's see here. Let's go to the box score. If I can find there we go. What happened? Well, so the Giants were up 29-27, and Raphael Sepchian kicked a 31-yard field goal to make it 30-29. Now, how the Giants – Lionel Manuel had a 51-yard pass from Phil Simms, and the Giants missed the extra point. Jess Atkinson missed the extra point. I don't know if it was a bad snap. That I don't know. But he missed the extra point. So the Giants, they could have been, if they didn't miss an extra point, they would have been winning 30-27. Raphael Sepchian's field goal would have sent the game into overtime. Maybe, who knows? Maybe the Giants win. Maybe they don't. But at least they would have gone into overtime. But because of an extra point, a missed extra point, it didn't go to overtime. So the Giants went up losing 30-29. So now the Giants are 3-2. Then comes this game here. The Phil Simms and played the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals won 35-30. The Giants had 470 total yards of offense. The Bengals had 199 yards. But the 4 turnovers that the Giants had were very, very crucial. Phil Simms had 513 yards passing, but because he got sacked 7 times and lost 70 yards, he only wound up a net passing yards of 443. But, I mean, the Giants had 4 turnovers, and one of them was the Giants. It was 21-20 the Bengals were winning. Actually, the Bengals were winning 21-0. And the Giants clawed their way back on 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals to make it 21-20. Well, then the Giants got the ball back again. Sims throws an interception. James Griffin runs it back 24 yards for a touchdown, puts the Bengals up 28-20. The Bengals got another touchdown to put them up 35-20. Then the Giants scored 10 points in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, to make it 35-30. So the Giants totally outplayed the Bengals. Giants had like almost 300 more yards than the Bengals did. What was the first downs here? The Giants had 34 first downs. Bengals had 16. I mean, yeah, it was just Giants totally outplayed them. Should have won the game, but because of the turnovers, they didn't. So now the Giants are 3-3, but then they go on a little bit of a run here. And Washington would come to town on Sunday, October 20th, and the Giants would win 17-3. So now the Giants are 4-3. The following week, the Giants would go play in New Orleans against the Saints. They would win 21-13. Now the Giants are 5-3. The following Sunday, the Giants would host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they would win 22-20. The Giants outplayed them, but I remember that Tampa Bay had the ball late, and they were driving. I forgot exactly what happened. There was a couple penalties were called on them, I think, and they pulled them out of field goal range or something like that. But the Bucs were not a good team, but the Giants let them hang around. The Buccaneers actually almost won that game. So the Giants won 22-20. So now the Giants are 6-3. The following week, the Giants would play the Rams and beat the Rams 24-19. Now the Giants are 7-3. Then on Monday Night Football, of course, good old Monday Night Football, strikes again. The Giants lose 23-21. Let's see. The Giants were winning 21-14 going into the fourth quarter. A Mark Mosley field goal made it 21-17. So the Giants were still up by 4 points, but a Clint Didier 14-yard touchdown reception from Jay Schrader made it 23-21. Of course, this was the Joe Theismann game too. When Jay Schrader came in, Lawrence Taylor snapped his leg, and the Giants were winning. The Giants winning 21-14. But then Joe Schrader, Jay Schrader, he had a very good game. He was always 13 out of 20, but 221 yards and 1 touchdown. So he completed 13 passes for 221 yards. So, but that was the Joe Theismann game. It was his final game of his career. So the Giants were up. Giants were winning going in the fourth quarter. The Giants gave up 9 points in the final quarter and wound up losing. Of course, once again, Monday Night Football. So, all right, then the Giants win. They go to play the Cardinals in St. Louis, and they win 34-3. The Giants are 8-4. Following week, now this game here, I remember watching this game on. This one just killed me. The Giants were winning, and they give up 2 touchdowns in the final, 5, 6, 7 minutes of the game to the Browns, and they wound up losing 35-33. Yeah, the Giants were up. Eric Schubert kicked a 40-yard field goal to put the Giants up 33-21. Then the Browns would score 2 touchdowns. Clarence Weathers on a 25-yard touchdown pass from Gary Daniels. Matt Barr with the kick, extra point, made it 33-28. And then Ernest Biner. I remember the Giants, these final 2 drives just couldn't stop the Browns. I don't know, they were just tired or what. They outplayed the Browns. Giants had 28 first downs. The Browns only had 17. Giants had 496, almost 500 yards of offense. I mean, the Giants were running the ball, passing the ball, but those final 2 drives, they just could not stop the. They also had they had Kevin Mack and Ernest Biner too. Those guys were 2 phenomenal running backs. But those final 2 drives, they just could not stop the Browns, and they lost a tough one, 35-33. Then the Giants would go play Houston Oilers in Houston, and it win 35-14. They dominated that game. Real good game. Really dominated them. Now the Giants are 9-5. Then the following week, once again, the Giants lost another tough one. Jim Jeffcoat picked off a pass ran it back like 50 or 60 yards for a touchdown against the Giants, and the Cowboys won 28-21. Now, that wasn't the final scoring play, but that was one of the touchdowns that the Cowboys got. He picked a pass off and ran it back for a touchdown. And I think that's the one, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was the game that secured the Cowboys with the, that wound up securing the Cowboys with the overall division, because they both wound up tied. The Cowboys and the Giants both wound up tied at 10-6. However, the Dallas finished ahead of the Giants and Washington in the NFC East based on better head-to-head records. The Cowboys were 4-0. So the Cowboys swept the Giants and they swept the Redskins. The Giants and the Redskins each split their series. So, but then also, see, the Giants were 10-6, the Redskins were 10-6, and the Giants got the nod. Okay, well, and the 49ers were 10-6. So there was three teams who were 10-6. So only two of the three teams obviously made it to the wild card. So the Giants and the 49ers wound up getting the nod, because the Giants were the first NFC wild card based on better conference record. The Giants were 8-4 in the conference. San Francisco was 7-5, and Washington was 6-6. They were all 10-6, but the Redskins did not make the wild card because they had the worst conference record. So what that gave the Giants, which was important, because remember the 2 years ago, before in 1984, the Giants went to San Francisco and they lost 21-10 in the divisional round. Also this year, the Giants had the better conference record, so the Giants and the 49ers faced each other, but it was in New York or New Jersey, and the Giants would win 17-3. So the Giants and the 49ers had a bunch of the Giants and the 49ers and the Giants and the 49ers and the 49ers and the Cowboys have had some really good rivalries in the playoffs. But that's the reason why the Giants wound up getting to the playoffs, and that's why they hosted the wild card game against the 49ers. So anyway, after the Giants lost 28-21, they fell to 9-6. So it was very, very important that they would win their final game of the season, which I think it was like a win and you're in situation. I think it was for the Giants. Well, the last game of the season was on Saturday at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Giants would win 28-10. Joe Morris had over 200 yards. He had 3 touchdowns. He had over 200 yards rushing. Let's get the exact stats here, shall we? Joe Morris had 202. He ran the ball 36 times for 202 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had a 65-yard touchdown run. I mean, the Giants defense held the Steelers to 10 first downs, 214 yards of offense. I mean, it was masterful. The Giants ran the ball 53 times for 289 yards. Absolutely phenomenal. What a way to I believe it was a win and they were in situation, and they won, obviously. So they were in the playoffs. So, I mean, as I said, you can just see each year they were getting a little bit better. So let's go over the 1985 season here. So we go going into the AFC, right? 3 teams from the AFC East made it to the playoffs. The Dolphins won with the record 12-4. The Jets and New England Patriots were both 11-5. Now let's not forget the Patriots wound up winning the championship game. They went to the Super Bowl. So the Jets and the Patriots were both 11-5. They were the 2 wildcard teams. The Cleveland Browns were 8-8. The Giants lost to them. The Browns were 8-8, and the Giants lost at home to them. If the Giants hadn't lost to them, right, they'd won. They would have won the division. They would have been 11-5, and the Cowboys would have been. But anyway, and then the Raiders, they won the AFC West with a record of 12-4. So in the playoffs, we have New England Patriots beat the Jets 26-14. So in the divisional round, the New England Patriots beat the Raiders 27-20. And in the other divisional round, the Miami Dolphins beat the Cleveland Browns 24-21, setting up a championship game between the Patriots and the Dolphins. The Patriots won on the road. They won 3 straight road games. They won in New Jersey. They won in Los Angeles against the Raiders, and they beat the Dolphins in Miami in the Orange Bowl. So that New England won 31-14, sending them to the Super Bowl. It wasn't much of a Super Bowl. Okay, so over in the NFC, the Cowboys won with a record of 10-6, better head-to-head against the Giants. Giants got the wild card. In the NFC Central, the Bears were 15-1. They won running away. They won by 7 games over the Green Bay Packers. NFC West, the Rams were first with a record of 11-5. The San Francisco the record of 10-6 got the second wild card game. So since the Giants had the better conference record, right? The Giants were 8-4 in the conference. The 49ers were 7-5 in the conference. The Giants hosted the wild card game, and the Giants wound up prevailing 17-3. Giants defense really stepped up big time. So that set up in the divisional round. That sent the Giants to Chicago. Chicago won 21-0. The Giants' offense just was non-existent. Giants got sacked, I think, 6 times. Richard Dent had like 3.5 sacks. Giants had some turnovers. I mean, they couldn't. The first drive the Giants had, they moved like 45 yards into Chicago's territory. They were moving. First 4 plays, I think they went like 45 yards. They're like, move. I'm like, whoa, all right, baby, here we go. Nope. I remember the Giants didn't get a first down in 9 of their first 11 drives. So on 2 of their first 11 drives, they got first downs. The other 9, it was like, I guess it was 3 and out. So it was just absolutely horrible. But Rob Carpenter, after I think 4 plays, they went 45 yards, I think it was, in their first drive. Rob Carpenter caught a pass, ran, fumbled it. Bears got it. Bears ball the other way. That was pretty much it for the Giants offense for the whole rest of the game. Anyway, so the Giants lost 21-0. The Rams and the Cowboys played in the other divisional round game. The Rams won 20-0. And so that set up the championship game with the Chicago Bears and the Los Angeles Rams. The Chicago Bears went back-to-back shutouts. They shut out the Giants 21-0, while in the championship game, they shut out the Rams 24-0. So that set up the Super Bowl, which was not much of a Super Bowl. I'm going to tell you that much, with the between the Bears and the Patriots. However, they wound up 46-10. But the Patriots were actually winning 3-0. One of the first plays of the game, Walter Payton fumbled the ball. Bears had it. Walter Payton fumbled the ball. The Patriots recovered it. Obviously, couldn't go anywhere. And let's see, what was it? 1 minute and if I can figure it out here. 1 minute and 1 minute and 19 seconds into the game, right? 1 minute and 19 seconds, the Patriots kicked the field goal because they recovered a fumble, couldn't go anywhere on 3 plays, and so they had 4 plays, they went 0 yards. So basically their 4th play was they kicked the field goal. So basically their first 3 plays, they didn't gain a yard, didn't gain 1 yard, and they wound up kicking a field goal. So they were up 3-0. But then after that, it was all Bears. The Bears scored the next 44 points to go up 44-3. Then New England scored. Irving Fryer caught an 8-yard touchdown reception from Steve Grogan to make it 44-10 in the 4th quarter. Then the Bears, Bears got a safety. Grogan got tackled in the end zone for a safety by Henry Wechter. So make it 46-10. So it was really, I mean, New England had 12 first downs. This. They ran the ball 11 times for 7 yards. They got 0.6 yards a carry. 11 times for 7 yards. Total net yards, the Bears had 408. The New England Patriots had 123 total yards of offense. Unbelievable. I mean, New England got sacked 7 times. I mean, the only thing that one can say that they came out of this game with that they could feel any good about, they basically said to themselves, Walter Payton was not going to beat us. And that would be correct. Walter Payton ran the ball 22 times for 61 yards. Didn't even get 3 yards a carry, like 2.8 yards a carry. So every time he got the ball, like the whole team went after him. I mean, yeah, everybody was keen on him. They made sure that Walter Payton did not beat him. It looked like he didn't even get a reception either. He didn't get a reception. So they shut Walter Payton down. And the one thing is the one bummer of it is that Walter Payton, he's kind of bummed out, I believe, because he never scored a touchdown. He wanted to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, but it was just not meant to be. But he was on a winning Super Bowl team. He got himself a ring. They were 15-1. Actually, what was it? 18-1 after the 2 playoff wins and the Super Bowl win. So they're 18-1. He won a Super Bowl, but is what it is. But it was a horrible, absolutely horrible Super Bowl, 46-10. But just goes to show you how good the Bears were that year. I mean, they were absolutely phenomenal. Their defense in the beginning, the first few games, wasn't super duper spectacular, but then they started clicking. And the last 10 games or so of the season, it was just like unbelievable. Obviously, back-to-back shot. They played the 3 playoff games. They gave up 10 points. Back-to-back shutouts, divisional round, championship game, and then the Super Bowl. They gave up 10 points. 10 points in 3 games. I mean, what a defense. What a defense. Unbelievable. Well, that pretty much wraps up the 1985 season for the New York Giants, which was the 61st season in the history of the New York Football Giants. When I come back, we're going to go over the 1986 season. I think we all know what happens there. But I said, you'll notice, like with Bill Parcells, he started off 3-12-1. The Bill Parcells factor. He started working his magic. Then he went to 9-7. Then he went to 10-6. Then 1986 they would go to 14-2, win the Super Bowl. So he was working his magic, and then not only had the 1 Super Bowl, but we had the 2 Super Bowls. So that the 1985 season was not a bad one. They had 6 losses, but they had 6 tough losses. They lost to one of the best teams of all time. So they could hold their heads up high. But we all know 1986 season magic. So that wraps up the 1985 season. I'll be back again with the 1986 season, which just happened to be the 62nd season in the history of the New York Giants. I'll see you then.